Hello, my name is Ashley Brandis, and in this presentation we're going to be discussing Chapter 8 from Predictably Irrational and how it applies to Microsoft. Specifically, are too many doors open for Microsoft? And we're going to be talking a little bit about some of Microsoft doors or opportunities that they had, and some of the ones that were successful as well as some of the ones that weren't as successful. But first, we are going to talk about a little bit of background on Microsoft. And if you remember from my last presentation, I did a little background on Microsoft's current CEO, whose name is Satya Nadella. And Satya has a main focus on cloud computing. And actually, he has moved the way all the way up to CEO, and part of the reason for that is his prominence and his work that has been done with cloud computing. And this has become actually one of the major focuses of Microsoft and a future focus in expanding cloud computing. And Microsoft Azure is one of the programs that's offered that is used for cloud computing, building, managing applications, and the applications are stored in Microsoft storage through the cloud is what people would call it. So that's just a little bit of background on Microsoft's future focus, or one of their main focuses of the future. So a little bit of background on Chapter 8 in Predictably Irrational. The chapter opens up with a story about Zheng Yu, and Zheng Yu was a warlord who had an army, and they had all of these ships, and they had all this equipment. And one night, Zheng Yu decided to burn down the ships, burn them all, and he destroyed all the cookware. And when the troops were aware of it, and they were wondering why he did this, they eventually figured out that Zheng Yu didn't want distractions. Instead of the troops worrying about who would be cooking dinner that night, who would be doing dishes, or troops who would be working about watching the ships or taking care of the ships, he wanted to get rid of those distractions and have the troops focus on war. And he pretty much told the troops that you fight and you win, or you fight and you die. And since he did that by burning down the ships and destroying the equipment, he actually won 9 consecutive battles. And his wins were contributed to him having his troops focus on one main thing, and that was victory. And so the chapter opens up with that story, which is a great setting, and then it moves on to some of the studies that occurred and some of the experiments that happened. And if you remember, there was the experiment with the doors. And this experiment had many different variations, but the total purpose of it was students would go into a computer type lab, and they would have 3 door options. They would have like a green door, a red door, or a blue door. And depending on what door they clicked on, they could make the most money. So maybe the student clicked on a few doors and found out that the blue door offered the most money. And if that student was to click on the blue door consistently, then that student would make the most money by consecutively clicking on that door instead of clicking around from the blue door to the red door to the green door. But what was found was that when they did the experiment and they made it so that doors would slowly become transparent and eventually disappear, that the students would not let the doors disappear. The students, even if they were clicking on the blue door and the red door was slowly fading, they would go over quickly and click on the red door because they didn't want the red door to disappear. And with the many different variations, students constantly kept the door open or kept the door visible, the different doors, even though they were losing money. And it came to a point where the experimenters actually said, hey, if you click on the red door the whole time, you'll make this much money. And the students still decided to waste some clicks on some of the doors so they wouldn't go away. And the experimenters' overall finding was that as people, we don't like to let doors close, or we don't like to have missed opportunities, even if the opportunities aren't that great. And so by thinking about this and how it applies to business, there are some companies who are very focused on one specific area, and there are companies who are focused on an area, but they decide they want to venture out and try new things. And it makes me wonder if some of those innovative ideas are actually detrimental to the company's overall focus on the goal. And specifically, looking back through some of Microsoft's history, it's seen that Microsoft has kept some doors open that they maybe shouldn't have. And we're going to actually go through some of those in this presentation. And we're going to start with some of Microsoft's successful ventures. And then we're going to move on to some of the unsuccessful, less successful ventures that maybe could have been avoided or the effort could have been put somewhere else. So when we're talking about some of the successful products associated with Microsoft, these are just a few. I picked a couple because there are more than just these three, but these come to mind. So for instance, the Xbox. The Xbox gaming system, developed in the early 2000s, has been very successful for Microsoft. Over the last couple years, Microsoft has actually been getting positive revenue from the system, and not just the system, but the overall product, the games and everything like that. They've also sold over 77 million consoles as of 2013, and they continue to sell more. And one of the things that gamers are looking forward to and consumers are looking forward to is Microsoft creating a new console. And the new console is expected to launch the end of this year for the holiday season, and it's known as Project Scorpio. And a lot of the gamers and reviewers are predicting that Project Scorpio is actually going to be better than what PlayStation has to offer. So Microsoft has done a great job with the Xbox, and they've also done a great job with enhancing Office. So Office 365 has been a huge success, and I'm currently actually using it, and I know some of you will likely use Office 365 as well for these presentations. And then also Skype. Skype has been successful. And for those of you who don't know what Skype is, it's a video telephone type conference. And it's not necessarily a conference, but a video phone call where you can see people from around the world. It's kind of a cool concept, but it's been very successful. Some of Microsoft's current problems, I guess you could say, or investments. One of the most recent ones is the Nokia investment that they had. And recently Microsoft wrote off their Nokia investment. It was about an $8 billion write-off. And the company had high hopes of entering the mobile industry and making an impact by working and attaining Nokia. But it wasn't successful. Windows Vista, the operating system, many of us cringe at Windows Vista who have had problems with it. But also Windows Vista didn't take off like the company hoped it would have with users. And so it wasn't deemed the most successful. The Zune, many of you may remember the Microsoft Zune product that was supposed to be the competitor with the Apple iPod. It only accounted for about 2% of the mobile music market, and it wasn't very successful. And then we also have Internet Explorer 6, which had many problems. It was actually labeled as one of the worst tech inventions ever. Because it had so many problems with security issues and user issues. And then lastly, which is on this presentation, is the Kin, which is a phone that had a specific focus on social media and everything like that, and it didn't take off like it should have, and it ended up costing more to use that phone than other devices. With competitors and innovation pressures from different companies, Microsoft may feel pressure to seek out new things, such as mobile phones. And if they did get in the mobile phone industry, which they might, Apple and definitely Samsung would be potential competitors for the company. And then also Amazon has been a competitor for Microsoft because of the cloud computing aspect. And so innovation is seen as positive, but it can also be a negative. And with the pressures of consumers and competitors, Microsoft may be feeling that they need to innovate a little bit more and be a little bit more competitive in different areas. So the ultimate question is, are too many doors being left open? Is Microsoft focusing on too many things at once? And should they just be focusing on their main goals, which I'm viewing as currently cloud computing? With Microsoft, specifically with the mobile phone market and the mobile phone industry, Microsoft continues to try and get into that industry and make an impact. But so far, their multiple attempts have not been successful. And the company currently has some patents for potential mobile phone devices. And so it's showing that the company is still showing interest in that area. And it's just interesting to see that they're determined to get in there. But maybe they could focus a little bit more effort or monetary aspects towards other things that they want to focus on, specifically cloud computing, or maybe enhancing the current products that they have. So for the discussion, I guess the main question would be, do you think Microsoft is focusing on too many things at once? Or maybe you think Microsoft is doing a good job by trying to be innovative and getting into different industries and making new products. But it's just interesting because there are some companies that are very successful by creating simple products. So it's just something to think about and something I'd like to hear back from all of you about and your opinions. Thanks.